Delilah Monroe was a powerhouse in the luxury car world. She didn't inherit her empire. She built it from nothing. Monroe Motors, her brainchild, stretched across 3 states with showrooms that gleamed like art galleries and customers who trusted her name more than any brand she sold. She lived in a modern hillside estate just outside of Aspen and was married to what she once believed was the love of her life. But all it took was one rainy night and a single phone call to bring her world crashing down. It had been a tense day already. Delilah had wrapped up a high-stakes investor meeting and was mentally drained. She was halfway across the old Briar Creek Bridge when her phone buzzed. It was her husband, Nathan. His voice was laced with panic. Something had gone wrong at the main office, he said. Urgent, life-altering, and needed her attention immediately. She turned her SUV around without thinking twice, heart pounding. But as she neared the exit ramp, something felt wrong. She pressed the brakes and nothing happened. The pedal sank, no resistance. Her eyes widened as the car picked up speed, hydroplaning toward the rail. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and then silence as the vehicle plunged into the icy ravine. The next thing Delilah could register was a thunderous ache running through every nerve in her body. Her eyes wouldn't open. Her muscles wouldn't respond. She was trapped, fully aware but paralyzed, her mind screaming into a void while her body lay motionless. Around her, machines beeped steadily. She could make out voices through the muffled walls, some familiar, some not. Then came a voice she'd clung to in happier days. "How is she doing today?" Nathan's tone was calm, polished. To Delilah, it sounded like hope, relief. He was here. She wasn't alone. "Still no change, Mr. Monroe," the nurse answered. "Dr. Ellison will evaluate her again this evening." Delilah willed her fingers to twitch, her lips to part. Anything, but nothing moved. She felt the warmth of Nathan's presence until the nurse left, and then another voice chimed in. A voice she instantly recognized, and one that twisted her gut. "She still out cold?" The tone was smug, almost playful. It was Marissa, her assistant of 7 years. Nathan's response was ice. "Yeah, completely. They don't think she's coming back." Delilah's mind reeled. What was Marissa doing there? Why did Nathan sound so indifferent? "Then it worked," Marissa whispered. "Flawlessly," Nathan replied. "Brake failure. Just like planned. All we do now is wait. Soon enough, everything will be mine." Delilah's heart thundered so hard the monitor's beeps picked up pace. She struggled to regulate her breath, terrified that if they noticed, they'd realize. She was aware, and finish the job. "You're brilliant," Marissa purred. "Once it's official, we'll revisit those living will documents, right?" Nathan chuckled, dark and smug. Already handled. She was very clear. No artificial life support, no machines. It's all signed and sealed. Delilah's thoughts. Millionaire. This wasn't an accident. It had been a setup, by the man she loved and the woman she trusted. And now they were standing inches from her hospital bed, waiting for her to die. Nathan's voice dropped to a near whisper. "The lawyers granted me temporary control. I already started liquidating some assets. Once she's gone, there's no one to contest it." "Not even her precious COO?" Marissa asked as she circled the bed, the click of her designer heels echoing off the tile. "He's loyal," Nathan said, "but naive. I'll handle him." Delilah inhaled slowly through her nose, her chest tight with fury. As Marissa leaned close, the smell of her floral perfume filled the air. "She always said I couldn't pull off these earrings," she giggled, lifting the diamond studs from the drawer. "Look at me now." Delilah didn't move, didn't twitch. She had to stay dead to the world if she wanted to stay alive. The next day brought a shift. A new voice entered her room. A calm, male voice with a faint European accent. "Good morning, Mrs. Monroe. I'm Dr. Ellison. I'll just be checking your vitals." Delilah focused all her strength. Her eyelids parted slightly, letting in a flood of light. "Mrs. Monroe?" the doctor murmured in shock. He stepped closer. She managed a broken whisper. "Please, don't say anything." He blinked. "You're awake?" "Yes," she rasped. "My husband and Marissa, they tried to kill me. Cut the brakes. If they find out I'm conscious, they'll try again." The doctor's face changed, from clinical to guarded. "Those are serious accusations." "I heard them," she said, gripping his wrist with what little strength she had. "They think I'm a vegetable. Let them. But please, buy me time." "Doctor." Ellison glanced at the door and nodded subtly. "Okay, I'll report no changes for now, but if I sense you're in danger, I will act." "Thank you," Delilah breathed. Before we continue the story, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us keep making stories like this. Moments later, Nathan entered again. Dr. Ellison stood beside the bed, calm and unreadable. "Any update?" Nathan asked, his voice syrupy with concern. "No change," the doctor replied. "Vitals are stable, but still no responsiveness." "I see," Nathan said, a note of irritation hidden beneath the surface. He sat beside her bed again, brushing imaginary dust off the blanket. "Delilah," he whispered bitterly, "you've always made things complicated, even dying." He gave a quiet laugh. "Everyone thinks I'm the grieving husband. The board has already started shifting things into my control. You did all the heavy lifting, sweetheart. I'll just be the one who enjoys the benefits." Delilah lay motionless, her body stiff with rage. Nathan's fingers slid into hers. "And Marissa, she's younger, easier, grateful." He leaned close to her ear. "I hope you can hear this, because this is what real power feels like." The next morning, Nathan returned to the hospital wearing his usual mask of concern. His steps were rehearsed, calculated. Delilah stayed completely still, her breathing even, the machines hiding the storm brewing inside her. Dr. Ellison was already in the room, casually reviewing the chart. "Anything new?" Nathan asked, feigning worry. "Still no notable improvement." The doctor responded calmly. "She's stable, but her condition hasn't changed." Nathan let out a heavy sigh, the kind meant for sympathy, not sincerity. "This is so hard. I just want what's best for her." His voice cracked slightly, as if he were choking back emotion. "Of course," Dr. Ellison said with a nod. "But we're not at the stage where we can make any major decisions. We're monitoring closely." Delilah could feel Nathan's stare, sharp and invasive. Once the doctor left, the mood in the room turned instantly. Nathan's hand tightened slightly around hers. "Still playing the long game, huh?" he muttered under his breath. "You're tougher than I thought." He leaned in again. "But it doesn't matter. The narrative's already set. You're the poor wife in a coma, and I'm the devoted husband trying to hold things together. I've got everyone eating out of my hand." That afternoon, Nathan returned once more. But this time he didn't come alone. Marissa strutted in behind him, her heels echoing loudly as she made no attempt to hide her glee. "She's still breathing?" she asked with a smirk. "Barely," Nathan replied. "Doctor says nothing's improved." Marissa leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. "Perfect, that gives us more time. The paperwork for the lakeside condo just cleared. Your signature's impeccable." "Practice makes perfect," Nathan said with a dry chuckle. "I've been forging her name for weeks. Bank accounts, property transfers, even some of the car inventory sales." "What about Tyler?" Marissa asked. "Didn't he question the sudden shifts?" "Tyler's being a pain," Nathan muttered. "He's asking too many questions, wants to bring in an outside auditor. Says the board is starting to whisper." "Then get rid of him," she said casually. "Replace him before he becomes the problem." "I can't, not yet," Nathan said. "He knows the business too well. I need to learn the system more before I make any big moves." Delilah's chest rose slightly. Tyler, her operations director. Honest, loyal, meticulous. She'd always known he had her back. If anyone could be an ally in this mess, it was him. The days began to blur. Nathan's visits grew bolder, more arrogant. Sometimes Marissa came with him, sometimes he came alone, always slipping back into that sinister persona the second the staff left. Delilah stayed still through it all, absorbing, Every lie, every threat, every reckless brag. One evening she heard him snickering beside her. "You should have seen the reaction I got at last night's benefit," he said, sipping coffee. "They set up a fund in your name, a foundation. The Delilah Monroe Fund. Can you believe it?" He laughed. "Donations are pouring in. People are practically throwing money at me, all for the woman in the bed." Delilah's stomach twisted. Not only was he stealing from her, he was using her name to do it, turning her into a symbol of sympathy while bleeding her legacy dry. That illusion began to crack the day Tyler showed up. His voice was distinct, firm, direct, and unfamiliar to Nathan's new circle. "Nathan," Tyler said, stepping into the room, "I'd like to see Delilah." Nathan looked up, caught off guard. "You're not on the visitors list." "I worked with her for years," Tyler said. "I want to see how she's doing." "She's the same," Nathan replied tersely. "Nothing's changed since last week." "Then it won't hurt." "For me to say hello," Tyler said. 10 minutes, that's all." Nathan looked annoyed, then finally sighed. "Fine, 10 minutes, then you're out." He left the room, closing the door behind him. Tyler stepped closer to the bed, his tone shifting. "Delilah, it's me, Tyler. I don't know if you can hear me, but something's wrong. Nathan's making decisions that don't sit right with me. Selling off properties, firing people you trusted, replacing them with people we've never vetted." Delilah listened closely, her chest tightening with emotion. "He says he has full authority, power of attorney, but no one's seen the document. He won't show it. And the investigation into the accident, it's gone quiet, too quiet, no official report. Just a few vague notes about mechanical failure." Tyler hesitated. "I've been digging, asking around. Something feels off. Really off." A single tear slipped down Delilah's cheek. Tyler noticed immediately. "Delilah?" he whispered, voice trembling. "Your heart rate's up. Was that a tear?" He moved in closer. "If you can hear me, I'm not going to stop. I'll find out what's really happening. I promise." The door swung open, and Nathan returned. "Time's up," he said flatly. "I was just saying." "Goodbye," Tyler said, keeping his composure. "Well, say it fast and don't come back." As he left, Nathan muttered, "People don't know when to stay out of things." Delilah clenched her jaw, inwardly screaming. She wasn't alone. Tyler knew something wasn't right. A few days later, Nathan returned, this time with someone new, an unfamiliar doctor, older, clinical, and emotionless. "I'd like to discuss withdrawal of care," Nathan said gravely. Delilah was very clear. She didn't want machines keeping her alive. The doctor glanced over the chart. "Her condition hasn't worsened," he said. "She's stable, breathing on her own. There's still brain activity." "I understand," Nathan said, letting his voice tremble just slightly. "But I can't live like this forever. No closure, no peace." "You'll need a full ethics review," the doctor said. "It's not a decision we make lightly." "Then I'll speak to the hospital board," Nathan said coldly. "Maybe someone more understanding." That night, well after hours, a soft knock broke the silence. A nurse entered, young, gentle, with warm eyes and a confident step. "Mrs. Monroe," she whispered. "It's Ava. I'm on night shift." Delilah remained still. Ava moved closer, adjusting the monitors. "Dr. Ellison asked me to keep an eye on things. Said your husband's behavior doesn't sit right." She leaned closer. "I've been watching you. You're different. There are small signs, eye movement, changes in heart rate, tiny twitches. You're not as unresponsive as you're pretending to be, are you?" Ava waited, then whispered, "If you can hear me, blink." Delilah hesitated. Was it a trick? Could she trust this woman? But something in Ava's voice, soft but fierce, felt real. Slowly, cautiously, she blinked once. Ava's breath caught. "You're in there," she whispered, awestruck. Delilah nodded faintly. "Please," she rasped, her voice dry as sand. "He can't know. Nathan, he tried to kill me." Ava's jaw clenched. "I believe you. We'll figure this out. You're not alone." Ava returned the following morning with a small backpack tucked beneath her jacket. She waited until the regular nurse stepped out for supplies, then quietly slipped into Delilah's room and pulled the curtain. "I brought some gear," she whispered, unzipping the bag. Inside were small physical therapy tools, resistance bands, stress balls, a rubber grip, and a pair of light ankle weights. "We're going to work on strength slowly. If we're going to get ahead of whatever Nathan's planning, you'll need to move more than your eyelids." Delilah nodded, still weak but more determined than ever. Ava helped her sit up slightly, supporting her with pillows as Delilah's trembling fingers tried to curl around the resistance band. "That's it," Ava encouraged softly. "Little by little. No rush." The effort made Delilah's forehead damp with sweat, but the motion, however slight, was everything. For the first time since the crash, she felt in control. "Any word from Tyler?" Delilah whispered through gritted teeth, focusing on the band. Ava looked up from her notepad. "He's still locked out of the hospital. Your husband had him blacklisted, but I have a friend who works at the dealership. She says Tyler's been pushing back, trying to rally the senior team. He knows something's wrong." Delilah exhaled hard. "We need to get a message to him. Let him know I'm alive." "I've already started," Ava replied. "Discreetly, I just need a bit more time." Delilah shifted her gaze toward the window. "Time's the one thing we don't have." Ava hesitated before speaking again. "There's another piece of this puzzle. A man has come by the hospital twice now. He says he saw your crash, said he pulled you from the riverbank. The security staff keeps turning him away, but he's persistent." Delilah's eyes widened. "Describe him." "Rugged-looking, beard, wears an old work jacket. Says his name is Max." A memory stirred, brief and fragmented. Cold water, a hand gripping hers, a voice yelling, "Stay with me." "Yes," Delilah breathed. "That's him. He saved me, not the first responders." "He said the same." Ava nodded. "Said your husband's been telling everyone that emergency services did the rescue, but Max insists he was the one who got to you first." "We need him," Delilah said urgently. "If he saw the crash, he might have seen Nathan nearby. We can use that." That evening, Ava returned to Delilah's room with a new sense of urgency. "I tracked Max down," she said quietly, helping Delilah sit up again. "He's been staying under the bridge where your car went off. Volunteers at a nearby shelter helped me find him. He's agreed to talk." "When?" "Tonight. I'm meeting him after my shift. If he's who he says he is, I'll bring him here." Delilah clenched her fists, the smallest sign of readiness. "And what about Nathan?" Ava sighed. "He's been talking to hospital lawyers, trying to find someone who'll sign off on terminating your care. He's found a sympathetic specialist who's open to reviewing the case." Delilah's breath caught in her throat. "Then we're running out of time." The next night, long after the hospital had gone quiet, Ava entered Delilah's room accompanied by a tall, broad-shouldered man whose clothes looked worn, but whose eyes were sharp and familiar. Delilah slowly opened her eyes, and the man froze, in disbelief. "You're awake," he whispered. "I wasn't sure if you'd even remember me." "Max," Delilah rasped. "You saved me." Max looked down, visibly uncomfortable. "Didn't feel like much of a rescue considering everything that came after. But you were there," Delilah said. "You saw what really happened." Max stepped closer. "Yeah, I saw your car go off the edge. I was fishing under the bridge, ran up when I heard the crash, saw your husband's car roll up a few minutes. Later, he didn't move, just stood there at the top, staring down like he was waiting for something." Delilah's skin prickled. "What else?" 2 days later, I went to your dealership, found your business card in the wreck and figured I'd report it in person. But I saw him and that woman. You know, the one with the sharp cheekbones." "Marissa," Delilah muttered. "Yeah. They were in the back lot, laughing, not crying, not shaken, celebrating." "Did you hear them say anything?" "I did," Max replied. "They were near a dumpster. She mentioned the brakes, worried someone might find out. He told her it was handled, said he paid a mechanic to make it. Looked like wear and tear, Max pulled a small plastic bag from inside his jacket and handed it to Ava. Inside were twisted, rusted metal pieces. I found these at the junkyard where they dumped your car. There are scratch marks. Looks like they were tampered with. I figured if anyone tested them, they'd know it wasn't an accident. Delilah's voice cracked. Would you testify? Max hesitated. Cops don't usually care much about guys like me, but yeah, I'll do it. Delilah's eyes filled with tears. Then we have something. Finally. At sunrise the next morning, Ava slipped into Delilah's room with a mix of excitement and worry etched on her face. I talked to Tyler, she said in a low voice. Met him at a diner across the street. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to convince him you're in danger. He's ready to help. Delilah sat upright with Ava's support, her hands gripping the blanket. Did you say I'm awake? No, but I told him you didn't crash by accident, that Nathan's been faking legal authority and trying to seize control. He's furious. That sounds like Tyler, Delilah said softly. He's been collecting documents too, bank transfers, weird property filings. He says there's already enough for an investigation. Delilah pushed herself a little higher in the bed, ignoring the burn in her arms. And Max? He's in, Ava said. He's stored the brake parts somewhere safe. He'll testify if we need him, but we need more. We need them to confess, Delilah said. On tape. Ava raised an eyebrow. You thinking what I'm thinking? Delilah nodded slowly. We set a trap. Later that evening, the plan began to take shape. Ava, Max, and Tyler met in a small staff room near the east wing of the hospital, where the cameras rarely reached and the night staff barely passed. Through? They spoke in hushed tones, each aware of the risk but even more aware of the stakes. Tyler brought a slim audio recorder disguised as a silver ballpoint pen. This one's top of the line, he explained. Runs for nearly 24 hours. Straight. It'll pick up everything clearly, even if they whisper. Ava took it carefully and tucked it into a narrow groove beneath Delilah's bedside table, securing it with double-sided tape. They never checked this spot. If they speak like they usually do, we'll get every word. Delilah sat up straighter than she had in weeks, her muscles sore but her mind razor-sharp. They've never held back when they think I'm unconscious. We let them talk themselves into a corner. Max crossed his arms. And if they get suspicious? They won't, Ava said. Not unless something changes. As long as she keeps up the act, they'll assume it's business as usual. Tyler added, Meanwhile, I've compiled everything I could find. Asset transfers, fraudulent signatures, fake board approvals. Once we pair it with their voices admitting to everything, we've got enough for the DA to press charges. Even the lawyer who notarized the forged documents is sweating. Delilah looked each of them in the eye, the fire in her chest glowing brighter than ever. We only get one shot. If they even get a hint that I'm aware, they'll accelerate their plan. Then we'll stay close, Max said. I'll be right outside the wing during the meeting. Ava's on shift. Tyler will monitor from admin. You'll be safe. The following afternoon, the trap was set. Just after lunch, Nathan entered her room with his signature air of quiet concern. But this time he wasn't alone. Marissa followed behind, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and a third man trailed them, a sharply dressed attorney with a leather briefcase and a hollow stare. Delilah lay perfectly still, her face angled slightly away from the door, her body limp. She could hear the soft click of the recorder beneath her table as it activated. Counselor, Nathan began solemnly. As you can see, her condition hasn't changed. No improvement since the initial evaluations. And the Ethics Committee has approved the request to terminate life support? The lawyer asked. Yes, Nathan confirmed. Tomorrow morning we'll proceed. Today's about finalizing the last of the legal transfers. Delilah listened, her breathing slow and deliberate, as the lawyer began reading aloud. This document acknowledges transfer of all business assets under Monroe Enterprises to the name of Mr. Nathan Monroe. It includes the downtown dealership, 3 warehouses, the lakeside property, and all associated corporate accounts. She could hear the pages turning, pens clicking. Nathan's voice followed shortly, confident, almost cheerful. Signed, and dated, April 2nd. Delilah almost smiled. That date was after her crash, after she'd been deemed unresponsive, proof of forgery. Marissa grew impatient, her tone dripping with irritation. Can we wrap this up? This place is depressing. Marissa, Nathan said, feigning offense, we're saying goodbye to my wife. Show some tact. She's not really here, Marissa muttered. You know that. The lawyer hesitated. Perhaps this would be better handled in another room. No, Nathan cut in. I want to be here with her. This is closure. Delilah listened to the scratch of pens and the final shuffle of paperwork. Then came a sound that made her blood boil, Marissa's heels clicking across the floor, growing louder, closer. You know, she whispered as she leaned in, her breath brushing Delilah's cheek. You should have just died when you had the chance. Nathan chuckled. The crash should have done the job, but this is cleaner. No suspicion. No mess. Just a grieving husband. Delilah's jaw clenched. Her fingers twitched slightly beneath the sheet. They thought they had won. Suddenly, Delilah opened her eyes. Gasps erupted in the room. The lawyer froze mid-sentence, his pen hovering above a signature line. Marissa stumbled backward, her face draining of color. Nathan turned around slowly, his expression twisting from confusion to horror. Delilah, he croaked. Delilah sat up slowly, her voice low but steady. I wouldn't approve of that transfer, Nathan. The room fell into stunned silence. Nathan took a step forward. You're confused. You've been unconscious for weeks. You don't know what you're saying. No, she said coldly. I know exactly what I'm saying. I know you cut the brakes. I know you forged my name. I know you've been waiting for me to die. Marissa backed toward the door, but it swung open before she could escape. Tyler stepped inside with a badge around his neck, followed closely by two uniformed officers and a woman in plain clothes. Nathan Monroe, the woman said clearly. You're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Nathan's eyes darted from the officer to the recorder still blinking, red under the table. You can't be serious, he snapped. She's manipulating you. We have it all. The detective cut in. Your voice, her signature dated after the crash, physical evidence of brake tampering, witnesses. Max entered the room behind her, holding up the plastic bag with the car parts. You remember me, right? He asked quietly. I'm the one who pulled her from the river, and I remember every word you said. The lawyer stepped back, hands raised. I wasn't part of this. I'll cooperate fully. Good idea, the detective replied flatly. As Nathan tried to protest, the officers moved in and placed him in cuffs. This is a mistake, he shouted. You can't do this to me. Delilah met his eyes unblinking. You tried to kill me, Nathan, but I'm still here. Marissa made a final desperate dash for the hallway, but she didn't make it far. An officer tackled her to the floor and cuffed her wrists. Get off. Me, she screamed, her voice shrill and furious. You're ruining everything. No, Delilah said calmly. You did that all by yourself. As Nathan and Marissa were led out of the hospital room, flanked by officers and camera flashes from press outside the window, Delilah sank back into her pillows, finally breathing freely. Ava rushed to her side. Are you all right? Delilah nodded slowly, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Yeah, I am now. It's over, Ava whispered. Delilah shook her head gently. No, it's just beginning. The hospital room quieted after the chaos, but the energy lingered, electric, raw, and unforgettable. Delilah sat upright now, no longer playing dead, surrounded by the people who had risked everything to save her. Tyler stood by the window, reviewing a folder stuffed with documents and evidence. Max leaned against the wall, arms folded, his eyes scanning the hallway for any signs of movement. Ava helped Delilah adjust her pillows and took a moment to breathe. Detective Rowan, the lead investigator, remained seated near the bed, scribbling final notes in a worn leather-bound notebook. You held your ground, she said, glancing up at Delilah. Not many people could have pulled off what you just did. I didn't have a choice, Delilah answered quietly. If I had reacted too soon, none of us would be here right now. Rowan nodded. You'll have full protection while the case proceeds. The district attorney believes this is airtight. Confession, documents, witness statements. There will be no bail. And Marissa? Delilah asked. She'll face charges too, Rowan confirmed. Accessory to attempted murder, fraud. She's already begun blaming Nathan, but their voices are both on that recording. It's enough. By nightfall, only Ava remained in the room. She helped Delilah into a reclining position, covering her gently with a fresh blanket. You're one of the toughest people I've ever met, she said softly. You survived by pretending to be gone. That takes more strength than most people realize. Delilah gave her a small, tired smile. You were the first person to... Believe me, I won't forget that. Ava squeezed her hand. You don't have to. We've got your back, always. The days that followed were filled with doctors' assessments, legal paperwork, and moments of calm that felt almost surreal. With Nathan and Marissa in custody, and the board of Monroe Motors made aware of the truth, Delilah was finally in control again. Her body was still recovering, but her mind moved faster than ever. Physical therapy sessions with Ava grew more intense, and Delilah pushed herself through every painful stretch. I want to walk back into that dealership, she told Tyler. During a visit, with or without a cane. We'll make it happen, he said. The staff's waiting for you. They never stopped believing in you, even when things got bad. Delilah looked at him, her voice unwavering. Then it's time we show them I'm still standing. Max became an unlikely hero overnight, once the news broke about his role. In saving Delilah and exposing Nathan, people began showing up at the shelter where he had been living. Donations rolled in. Local business owners offered him jobs. One mechanic shop even offered him a position as foreman. But Max turned them all down. Instead, he showed up at Monroe Motors the following week, nervous but hopeful. I don't know much about luxury cars, he said to Delilah, who was sitting behind her desk again for the first time in weeks. But if you'll have me... You saved my life, she interrupted, smiling warmly. We'll teach you whatever you want to learn. Start in the service bay. We'll figure the rest out together. As Monroe Motors stabilized, Delilah's focus shifted to something even more meaningful. She quietly launched a nonprofit, the Second Chance Initiative, dedicated to helping individuals who had survived financial betrayal, coercion, and manipulation. We're going to provide housing, legal help, and financial counseling, she explained to Ava one morning. People like Max, like me, we needed someone to believe in us. I want to be that person for others. Ava blinked back emotion. You already are. 1 week later, Delilah stood at the front of the dealership showroom. Her staff gathered in a wide arc, curious but hopeful. She wore black slacks, a tailored blazer, and carried a sleek cane that looked more like a fashion statement than a necessity. Her posture was proud, her voice strong. You all know what's happened, she began, locking eyes with each person. But what matters now is where we go from here. We rebuild, we protect what we've created, and we stand by those who stood by us. She gestured toward Tyler. This man fought for the truth. As of today, he's our new chief operating officer. Applause broke out, loud and genuine. Delilah smiled. Let's move forward, together. In the weeks that followed, the dealership buzzed with new life. Confidence returned. Whispers of uncertainty faded. And Delilah, once doubted and nearly erased, was now a living reminder that no betrayal, no matter how personal or vicious, could truly destroy her. Every morning she walked into her office with more strength than the day before. Employees smiled when they saw her. Customers asked about her recovery. And in quiet moments, she would glance out the window toward the service bay, where Max was helping a new trainee run diagnostics. He looked more grounded now. Cleaner clothes, steadier posture, a light in his eyes. I still don't know why you picked me, he said one afternoon. Because when no one else stepped forward, Delilah replied, you did. Meanwhile, The legal team pursued full restitution. Tyler worked late hours with forensic accountants to trace every asset Nathan had moved or hidden. Offshore accounts were uncovered. Shell companies collapsed. "We've recovered about 85%, Tyler told her in one update. "The rest is locked behind fake holding firms, but we'll get it." "Don't stop," Delilah said. "I want every cent back. Not because I need it, but because it was never his to take." At the same time, the DA's case against Nathan and Marissa grew stronger. More victims came forward. Women Nathan had manipulated before Delilah, all with eerily similar stories. Financial control, isolation, false promises. "He's been doing this for years," the lead prosecutor told Delilah. "You were the first to survive long enough and smart enough to take him down." Delilah nodded. "I hope I'm the last." Delilah's physical recovery progressed alongside the restoration of her business. With each day, her body grew stronger, the cane becoming less of a necessity and more of a reminder of resilience, of what she'd survived. Though her steps were steadier now, her nights weren't always peaceful. There were evenings she'd wake abruptly, breath shallow, heart racing, echoes of Nathan's voice still haunting her sleep. But each time she looked around her quiet modern home, free of the memories and manipulation that had filled her last one, she reminded herself she had won, and she hadn't done it alone. Ava had become more than a nurse. She was a friend, an anchor. They met often, sharing quiet meals and laughs that felt like a lifeline back to normalcy. One Friday night, they sat at a rooftop bistro overlooking the city skyline, their plates half empty, their conversation easy. "Are you sure you don't want to press charges against the hospital staff who supported Nathan's plan?" Ava asked gently, swirling the last of her drink. Delilah shook her head. "Most of them didn't know, and the few that did, I'd rather spend my energy on building something new than staying stuck in what's already over." Ava nodded, admiration in her eyes. "You're stronger than most people I've known." Delilah smiled faintly. "I didn't feel strong. I felt trapped. But the people who believed in me, you, Tyler, Max, you gave me enough light to fight through." Max, meanwhile, had found his rhythm at the dealership. Gone were the ragged clothes and guarded demeanor. He walked the floor confidently now, often guiding new recruits through service checklists or helping out on complicated repairs. One afternoon, he poked his head into Delilah's office, grease smudged across his sleeves. "Got my first compliment from the lead tech today," he said, half shy. Delilah grinned. "And you came all the way here just to tell me?" "Kinda," he chuckled. "It still feels weird, being needed somewhere." "You're not just needed, Max," she said. "You're part of this now. You changed the trajectory of everything." He paused, his eyes lowering slightly. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been there that night?" "All the time," she replied honestly. "But I don't live in the what-ifs. I live in the fact that you were." The Second Chance Initiative, the nonprofit Delilah had started, was gaining traction faster than anyone expected. Within a month, they had secured partnerships with 2 local shelters, rolled out a pilot legal aid program, and hosted their first seminar on identifying signs of coercive control. Survivors from all walks of life began reaching out. Some sent emails, others wrote letters. Delilah kept each one in a wooden box beside her bed, reminders of why she was doing this. One letter came from a woman who had been manipulated out of her savings by a former partner posing as a financial advisor. Another was from a teenage boy who'd run away from an abusive home and was now seeking guidance on rebuilding his life. Delilah read each message slowly, carefully, as if giving them her time was the first step toward giving them hope. One crisp Saturday, she visited the downtown dealership unannounced. The glass doors opened to warm greetings, handshakes, and a few surprised gasps. Max spotted her first and waved from the service bay. Tyler came out from the back office, file tucked under his arm. "You're early," he joked. "Didn't expect you until Monday." "I missed the chaos," she replied with a grin. "And I wanted to see how things were running without me breathing down everyone's neck." "Better than ever," he said. but definitely quieter. She walked the floor slowly, observing conversations, watching staff laugh openly. No tension, no fear. Nathan's toxic influence had been scrubbed out like a stain no one wanted to see return. Employees who had remained loyal during the worst of it had grown more confident, and newer hires were already adapting to the culture Delilah had built from day one: respect, transparency, and trust. The break room, Tyler handed her an investor file. "You've got a meeting Monday with a major venture group. They've been watching the company since the news broke. They want in." Delilah raised a brow. "A little late to the party." "Better late than never," he replied. "Oh, and we recovered the last of the offshore assets. Forensic accountants just wrapped up the audit. It's done." That evening, Delilah returned home to find an envelope waiting for her. Unmarked, no return address, resting in the mailbox like a ghost from a past she wasn't quite finished with. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was tidy, precise. "I don't expect forgiveness. I never wanted it to end like this." It was signed with a single initial, V. Vanessa. Delilah sat on her porch steps, staring at the note as twilight blanketed the horizon. For a moment, she felt nothing. No rage, no pain, no satisfaction, just silence. She folded the letter and tucked it away in the same wooden box where she kept the letters from survivors. Not because it belonged with them, but because it reminded her of the line she never wanted to cross. She didn't need to respond. Some chapters were meant to close without a sound. The next morning, she met Ava for brunch at a quiet cafe by the water. It had become their thing: coffee, laughter, and a small space away from the chaos. "You know," Ava said, stirring her cappuccino. "You've done more in 3 months than most people do in 3 years." Delilah chuckled. "Trauma has a way of speeding up your priorities. So what's next? For you? For the nonprofit? For the business?" Delilah leaned back, watching the light glint off the water. "They're all doing well, but I've been thinking about taking a step back. Just for a while." Ava tilted her head. "You? The woman who doesn't even take lunch breaks?" "That version of me nearly died behind a steering wheel," Delilah said quietly. "This version, she wants to breathe, maybe travel, visit some of the people who wrote to me, hear their stories." Ava reached across the table and touched her hand. "Then go, we'll hold the fort." Delilah smiled, her shoulders relaxing. "You know, someone suggested I write a book about all of this." "Would you?" Ava asked. "Maybe. Not about the betrayal, but the rebuilding, the quiet stuff, the part where survival turns into purpose." Ava grinned. "You've already got the title." "I do?" "Yeah," she nodded. "Playing Dead." Delilah laughed, genuinely, for the first time in a while. "That's actually perfect." A few months passed, and the world around. Delilah had moved forward, but she hadn't forgotten where her fight began. One brisk morning, she found herself walking the same sterile halls of Briarview Medical Center, the hospital where she had once lain silent, trapped in a body that refused to respond while betrayal whispered in her ears. Only this time, she wasn't strapped to machines or guarded by lies. She moved freely, her steps strong, her gaze focused. No cane, no escort. Just her and the unmistakable clarity that came from surviving what was meant to destroy her. Dr. Ellison met her at the end of the corridor, a rare smile softening his usually stern face. "If I hadn't seen the chart myself," he said, "I wouldn't believe it. You look unstoppable." "That's because I am," Delilah replied. Her vitals were perfect, reflexes sharp, cognition crystal clear. "Physically, you've made a full recovery," Dr. Ellison confirmed. "Emotionally?" Delilah hesitated, then gave a slow, thoughtful nod. "Stronger, wiser, calmer. It's not the kind of wound that disappears, but it stopped bleeding a long time ago." He looked at her with something like awe. "Pretending to be unconscious to stay alive. That's not just survival. That's brilliance." Delilah's smile was faint but sure. "Sometimes, silence is strategy." Outside, Ava waited by the curb in a sleek graphite sedan, one of the newer models from the showroom, a quiet thank you from Delilah. As she opened the passenger door, Delilah chuckled. "This car is too nice, you know that, right?" Ava winked. "Perks of being best friends with the boss." They drove through the city with the windows down, cool air brushing past them. The same city that once felt like a cage now looked like something entirely new. Delilah noticed details she hadn't seen before. Murals, market vendors, families laughing on sidewalks. She wasn't just alive now, she was awake. They pulled into a quiet lakeside park, a favorite of Ava's, a spot where peace felt like it had permission to exist. They walked side by side along the gravel path, the sound of water lapping gently in the distance. Delilah reached into her coat and handed Ava a folded piece of paper. "I got this last week. Didn't tell anyone." Ava read the note, Vanessa's handwriting still careful, composed. "Are you thinking of replying?" she asked. Delilah shook her head. "No, but I needed to acknowledge it. Not for her, for me. Just to prove I could look at it and not feel anything." Ava didn't say anything at first, then she nodded. "Then you're healing." As they strolled past the wooden gazebo, Delilah spotted a familiar group. Volunteers from the Second Chance Initiative, setting up tables for a community lunch. There were women with children, young men nervously holding paperwork, mentors, offering quiet smiles. Delilah and Ava approached without fanfare, welcomed by hugs, handshakes, and laughter. They began plating food, sharing stories, wiping down tables like they were part of something bigger than themselves, because they were. At one point, Delilah knelt beside a woman cradling a baby, her voice soft but steady. "You're not alone. You're never going to be alone again." Later that evening, back in her minimalist home overlooking the valley, Delilah poured herself a glass of wine and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows. Below, the city sparkled like a map of second chances. Her phone buzzed. Tyler had texted. Confirmation that the last of the frozen accounts tied to Nathan had been officially recovered. Max sent a photo of his new apartment, small, tidy, full of light. Ava shared pictures from the day's event, her messages dotted, with heart emojis and terrible puns. Delilah smiled, not because of pride, but because of peace. A kind of peace she had never known while running an empire or building her fortune. This was different. This was earned. She walked into her bedroom and opened the wooden box she kept on her nightstand. Inside were dozens of letters, handwritten. Notes, folded drawings, typed pages printed on cheap paper. Stories from strangers who had heard about her, who had survived similar betrayals, who now clung to her story like a lighthouse. Some were from women who had fled controlling relationships. Others from men grappling with guilt, shame, or confusion after being manipulated. Delilah read a few lines, letting their honesty wash over her. These weren't just stories. They were seeds. Proof that her survival had meaning beyond revenge. She closed the box gently and set it aside. The night was still. For the first time in a long time, she slid into bed without dread. No headphones, no numbing TV, just silence, and the weight of knowing she no longer had to pretend. She could simply rest. The next morning came quickly, and with it, a sense of purpose. Delilah was scheduled to speak at the Second Chance Initiative's first major benefit gala. The room was already packed when she arrived. Survivors, donors, community leaders, even law enforcement officers who had helped build the case against Nathan and Marissa. Dressed in a tailored navy blouse and crisp black slacks, Delilah wore no jewelry except for one small, telling detail. The same diamond earrings Marissa once tried to claim as her own. Tonight, Delilah wore them not for glamour, but as a quiet symbol of everything she'd reclaimed. When she took the stage, the applause was immediate and full. Delilah waited for it to fade before speaking. 1 year ago, she began, I almost lost everything, not because of an accident, but because of a lie. The people I trusted most tried to erase me, and for a while they nearly did. But I'm still here because others believed when I couldn't speak, because silence wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of it. She paused to let the words settle. So if you're watching this tonight, and you feel stuck, if you're questioning your worth, let me be the one to say, you're not broken, you're just beginning. The crowd rose to its feet, some applauding through tears. As she stepped off the stage, Ava and Tyler were waiting with open arms. Max stood nearby, clapping with quiet pride. Delilah looked at them, all of them, and for the first time she didn't feel like the woman who had barely survived. She felt like the one who had rewritten the ending. The gala ended in a blur of warm embraces and lingering conversations. Guests slowly filtered out beneath strings of soft lights and a velvet sky scattered with stars. Delilah lingered outside the venue, leaning against the railing of the terrace as the night air wrapped around her. She didn't crave attention or headlines. She wasn't waiting for applause. All she wanted was a moment to herself, a breath of stillness now that the battle was behind her. Her enemies were gone, her name cleared, her voice no longer silenced. This, right here, was the life she'd almost lost. In the following weeks, Delilah eased into a new rhythm. The whirlwind had slowed, but her purpose had not. The dealership ran smoothly under Tyler's watch. Max continued to mentor new technicians and had become a quiet leader in the garage. Ava transitioned from nursing to a full-time role with the Second Chance Initiative, helping survivors find footing and voice. The nonprofit gained national attention, receiving invitations to collaborate with major advocacy groups and government programs. Delilah turned down every personal spotlight. No memoirs, no talk shows, no interviews. She wasn't interested in becoming a symbol. She wanted to be useful. One morning, Delilah walked unannounced into the dealership's downtown office. She moved quietly through the building, watching from a distance as the staff laughed, focused, and worked like the team she'd once dreamed of building. There was no more fear, no manipulation in the air, only purpose. She passed the service bay, just as Max was showing a younger recruit how to recalibrate a hybrid system. He looked up, grinned, and wiped his hands on a towel. "Didn't think we'd see you today," he said. "Didn't think I'd want to come back today," she replied, smiling. "But I did." "You look different," he added. "You look lighter." "That's what surviving does to a person," she said. "Eventually, it lets you fly." Back in her office, once overtaken by Nathan's shadow, Delilah sat behind her desk and opened her laptop. A few pending messages, updates from Ava, a newsletter draft from the initiative team. But her eyes paused on something else, an email from a woman in Arizona. The subject line read, "You don't know me, but your story saved my life." Delilah clicked it open and read each word slowly. The woman had fled an abusive relationship after seeing coverage of Delilah's trial. She had found help through one of the foundation's new partner shelters. She was now employed, rebuilding, and safe. Delilah's hand hovered over her keyboard. She didn't know what to say. What could she say? Eventually, she typed back, "You're the reason I fought. Keep going. You're not alone." That evening, Delilah joined Ava and Tyler at a cozy wine bar for their weekly catch-up. They talked about everything except the past. No mention of courtrooms or hospital monitors, only future plans, shared goals, and inside jokes. "We should take a trip," Ava said suddenly. "Just the three of us, no work, no schedules." "Where?" Tyler asked, sipping from his glass. Ava looked at Delilah. "Anywhere she wants." Delilah thought for a moment. "Somewhere quiet, where there's water and stars and no reception." Ava raised her glass. "To disappearing on our own terms this time." They clinked their glasses together. As they left the bar, Delilah walked alone for a few blocks, her heels clicking gently against the sidewalk. She stopped at a bookstore still open late and wandered inside. In the self-help aisle, a woman browsed, the shelves with tired eyes and a nervous grip on her purse. Delilah didn't say anything. She just offered a warm smile as she passed. That was all it took. The woman nodded back, a small flicker of light in her eyes. Sometimes, Delilah realized, you don't have to tell your story out loud for it to reach someone. You just have to carry it with grace. Back home, she lit a candle on the windowsill, kicked off her shoes, and stood for a while in silence. The city buzzed softly in the distance. She poured a glass of water, walked to her bedroom, and opened the wooden box one last time. The letters inside were more than words. They were proof of something extraordinary. That strength doesn't always look like shouting or fighting. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like listening, like surviving in silence until it's time to rise. She closed the box and slid it back into the drawer. Her reflection in the mirror caught her attention. A woman who had built an empire, lost everything, and clawed her way back not just with power, but with people. With the nurse who refused to look the other way. With the mechanic who chose to speak up. With the operations director who never stopped digging. And with herself, finally, unapologetically herself. Delilah slipped into bed, no longer chased by fear or haunted by betrayal. She didn't need to run or hide or prove anything. She had lived through what many wouldn't survive, and turned it into something better. As she turned out the light, her final thoughts weren't about what had been taken from her. They were about what she had reclaimed, her name, her voice, her peace. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. And let us know your favorite moment in the comments.